Vivek Ramaswamy had some allusions to what sounded like a few conspiracy theories as to who controls the United States when he was a guest on David Pakman's show, and of course there was a bit of an interesting exchange between the two because they don't see eye to eye, and I wanted to show some clips of that interaction to you guys. I'll chime in with my thoughts every now and then, so let's check it out.
I mean, really, I think that there's a managerial machine that decides who's going to be churned out. It's not one person, it's a system. And I think it goes back to the way the government's run. I think the people who we elect to run the government are not the ones running the government. I don't think Joe Biden is really making most of the policy decisions that come out of the executive branch of the government. I really don't.
But give an example of someone who's making the decisions. I know you can't, it's not one person, but there must be a group.
It's not one person. Well, I'm resisting the premise, David. It is a machine. That is the Leviathan. I mean,
who runs the machine?
This is the apparatus. It's the wrong frame. That's the whole point, David.
Who built the machine?
Well, I think it's been built over the years from decades of purposeful loss of accountability. I think it was built by people who were elected into office that did not want to actually bear the accountability for their actions, and so quietly devolved power, first from Congress to three-letter agencies, from three-letter agencies to a managerial class that pervades the public and private sector alike. You don't have to take it from, what you will see as a crazy Republican candidate, far right or whatever you want to label me on your show. Michael Lind has written about this in a lucid manner. I think that there's a horizontal managerial class that pervades the public, private, and intermediate sectors in the United States that's wielding the decisions.
I just think it would put a lot of texture to it if you were able to say, Hillary's
Susan
in the
Rice,
class,
or Susan Rice. I mean, you can give examples of the people
Nancy Pelosi's husband, or Ellen DeGeneres, or
But that's not my view, and I understand the way the game is played. To then,
it's not a game. I'm just curious who it is.
But it's fine. I understand it. I'm having fun with it.
No, but it's not a game.
I understand it.
There must be some people.
David, and I don't say this in an ill-spirited way at all. Just getting to the truth of it, you are like dripping with the viscosity of sanctimony as you ask this question.
No, that's an ad hominem, Vivek. That's unfair. I think you don't want to answer the question. To attack me. It's an obvious question. If there's a machine and a managerial class, someone must be involved. There must be someone.
That's your assertion, David. And I think that my whole premise is that. I think this is true in both parties, but it's particularly true in the modern Democratic Party. I don't think Joe Biden has a choice in the matter of whether he's the nominee or not.
You can keep repeating that, and you can do ad hominems, but you're not really answering.
David, and for you to sort of now claim victim and claim ad hominem.
No, I'm not a victim. I'm fine. I'm a big boy. I'm a big boy. I'm a big boy.
Of course you are, and so I'm treating you like one.
I don't think David Pakman is acting like a victim or anything here. He's just asking Vivek to give some specifics with the claims he's throwing out, which I think is fair, right, to give some names. I am a skeptic sometimes. Like, I do have some conspiracy theories that tickle my brain because some coincidences just add up too much. And if he was going to say something like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris aren't in complete control, I'd be willing to agree with that. But Vivek Ramaswamy is kind of making it like there are deals being made by bureaucrats in secrecy behind closed doors under the table. A few of us can kind of piece together that the government comes second to corporations in terms of who's got control, like it's an open secret almost. Vivek probably won't say that, and he'll probably pin it on the government, but the corporations have way too much influence on the government, and politicians are basically working for them. Pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, defense contractors, these guys are in control of the government, and if someone were to be elected as president and come in and say, I'd like to shut down half of the military bases the United States has around the world, that would get shot down by the powers that be. That's a conspiracy I can get behind 100% personally.
And so I think the viscosity of the questioning is basically resisting the premise of the core point that I'm sharing with you, which is that it is not one puppet master that's an individual.
I agree.
It is a managerial machine that in the Democratic Party, in the Democratic establishment, and I think it exists in the Republican establishment too, is designed to crush the will of everyday citizens and to decide that this is who will be served. Up to you to digest. You're force-fed who you get. I think this is why the Biden documents case. Why don't you hear much about that right now? Why don't you, the open-ended investigation of Hunter Biden? I think these are levers that if Joe Biden tries to act like an agent and say when their time of deciding that he's not the nominee, well, I think that's when you're going to see those investigations then pick up steam to say that, well, you're not getting out of the way. We're going to get you out of the way. I think that is the Leviathan. It is not an individual. It's not individual action. It is collective.
But I'm not
action.
claiming it's an individual. I mean, listen, I think ultimately the audience can evaluate. When I say give me anyone, and you say my questions are when you say my questions are viscous,
one of hundreds of people, the Susan Rices of the world, sure, fit in that machine, but it's not one puppet master.
People like Susan Rice.
Yes,
people like Susan Rice.
People of that class, absolutely.
That's an answer. That could have been the first thing. You know, I mean, I don't know why my questions are viscous.
But I've played this game enough to know to say that Vivek thinks Susan Rice is the puppet master. But
no, I'm not saying
one
that.
Person.
I have no interest in saying that you said that. I just wanted to feel. I just was like, what sorts of people are you thinking
about?
There you got
an answer. There you go.
Whatever games others might play, I'm certainly not playing with you. I'm just curious who you're referring to, and people can judge it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people have an innate understanding that the people who are the politicians pretending to make those decisions, they're not really the ones making those decisions today. And I think the more clearly we see that, the more clearly we understand the work we have cut out ahead of us to reform a broken system. I'll give you other examples, too, while we're at it. See, now that you sort of clarified where you are on which premise you're asking about, I think the donor class is part of this as well. I think there's a lot of people who, in the Democratic Party, you're told that the Democratic Party stands for one person, one vote.
Right.
Well, I don't think so. Not so clearly.
I actually completely agree with Vivek Ramaswamy here. The politicians don't work for us, they work for their donors. And that's something that Vivek Ramaswamy and David Pakman can agree on, I feel like. David Pakman is trying to agree, or he's insinuating he agrees with him while trying to get him to say specifics about the people that are controlling the politicians. But Vivek is kind of brushing him off for trying to get him to answer a question.
I think that the people who are writing multi-million-dollar checks, even though they say you can only give $3,300 to Joe Biden,
right?
Why is he flying to Greenwich, Connecticut for $25,000 or $50,000 a plate dinners?
And this applies to Harlan Crow and the Koch brothers too, right?
I think it pervades both parties.
Okay, just making sure.
I've been as critical about this in the Republic, but you asked a question about the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
I'm against the influence of mega money in politics, period. But
I'm with
this is when you get to the reality of what that machine looks like. These are inputs into that machine. People who have lived in high levels, but not politically accountable levels of the administrative state that still have, you know, the dirty secrets that they're able to use as levers for the people who actually are in power, to the mega donor class that provides the mother's milk that is modern politics in both parties. Yes, I think that is all part of the machine that decides who and who isn't part of eligible to wield power.
All right, Vivek Ramaswamy, I think this is the first time ever that the word viscous has been used as an adjective to describe me, and for that we will certainly make a note in the show archives. Listen, Vivek,
it might stick if
it might stick, for lack of a better term. Yeah. We're watching this campaign very closely, and we're going to see what happens when the voting starts. And I appreciate you making time for me again in your busy schedule.
You're a smart guy, and I enjoy having conversation. We didn't get to a lot of policy discussion, so we'll have to continue that.
I'm going to mention, if there is a next time, the test for 18 to 24-year-olds to vote has to be where we start, but not today, because I'm being respectful of your time. We'll start with that.
Graduate from high school, pass the civics test that an immigrant has to pass. That's the punchline on that one, but we can continue.
All right, I would say apply it to all ages if you want to do that.
Let's just start with the clean slate, so you're not taking a reliance interest away from somebody else. But in principle, I'm all in for that. But
very conveniently with the most left-leaning voting bloc. But let's not open the door. Let's not open the door.
I would do it for everybody, but let's start somewhere.
We will discuss next time. Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you.
I think David Pakman handled that wonderfully, no pun intended, and spoke what was on his mind respectfully and gave the other side the opportunity to share their thoughts as well. And that's a trait that we see from him in other episodes of his show. Vivek Ramaswamy himself isn't an unintelligent guy, and I've seen him get disrespected on previous platforms, but he's smart. He's a very smart man. I think his talking points and some of his words he chooses sort of ignite or reinforce MAGA or right-wingers when it comes to these conspiracies that they might be using to get a battery in their backs, and that's kind of his whole game. He doesn't have to get into specifics, and that's enough for that group of people. David Pakman is aware enough to challenge some of the verbiage and claims and ask for some specifics and offer that olive branch saying like, I'm willing to agree that maybe there are certain forces or people behind the scenes in control that we can't see that nudge politicians in directions, but I'd like some specifics. We hear about the donor class with no names. David Pakman brought up the Koch brothers that have funded the Republicans over the years, but when we leave corporations out of that, to me it feels like we're being purposefully disingenuous. But what do you think? Do you agree that David Pakman got the better of Vivek Ramaswamy here, or do you think Vivek Ramaswamy came out on top? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.